Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to Aston Martin Chichester. And hello, I've been joined by a little black Labrador. Now, more dogs later, but arguably the Aston Martin DBX is Aston Martin's most important car. And I've got exclusive access to both one of the test mules and the very latest car to have a really good look around. I want to show you everything there is to know about this car and give you my 5 key things you need to know about the Aston Martin DBX. So let's start this video next to this particular car. I had no idea this would be here today. I was invited by Aston Martin Chichester to take a look around the DBX that they've got, which is just over there. We'll get to that very, very shortly. But this is one of the test mules. You've probably seen videos of this car being smashed around forest tracks, going sideways, and believe me, on close inspection, it looks like it's been doing that too. Probably the first used Aston Martin I really wouldn't want to buy. This car's done something like 1,000 kilometers of slow speed off-road testing and 2,000 kilometers of high-speed gravel roads. There are stone chips and damages all over the place, but that's not the important thing. This was done so that we know that DBX will do all of those things. The underpinnings and mechanicals of this car are identical to the finished car. The bodywork, interestingly, I didn't know this until talking to one of the guys from Gaydon that's here today, is predominantly made of fiberglass, but there are some really interesting purposeful design throws, the things that never actually made it to the real car, things to kind of put us off the scent a little bit, and that includes vantage headlamps. So when we look at the headlamps that actually ended up on the original car, very, very different. The other thing around the back of this car, by the way, is the rear tail lamps on this mule were, when I first saw those, I thought, that's not very Aston Martin. They were completely there just to throw us off the scent. So let's take a look around the proper car, shall we, because it's just over here. So here you go then. Now, the car that we have in front of us is actually a pre-production car. So this was all completely hand-built, but is a completely accurate representation of what customers will get delivery of. This car, the colour of this car is actually called Concourse Blue, and it is beautiful. It's almost like a mix between blue, gunmetal grey. Very, very stunning colour. Now, one of the things I want to do, I've got access to someone who's actually driven the car. Sadly, I'm not able to drive the car today, but hopefully I will do very, very soon. But I also want to give you the 5 things that you really, really want to know about this car, things that you might not be able to Google. Now then guys, I've been joined by Neville Foster, who's part of the performance driving team. Now you, luckily, have actually driven this car. I'm very jealous.
It's and so it should be. It's a fantastic car to drive.
Really?
It's oh yeah, exceptional actually. Beautifully stable when you're driving, nice and level. Best way to really describe it is when you're driving the car, it just feels so sure-footed.
Yeah.
And you can really feel through the steering wheel exactly what the car is doing, in complete control. Beautifully balanced.
It's got some pretty trick stuff I'm going to talk about with these guys later in terms of anti-roll control, because SUVs of old, high centre of gravity, a bit kind of wallowy through the corners, and that's really not the case with this car.
No, not at all. It actually has a 48 volt motor, so it's an active anti-roll bars, front and back, that's on there. So what it has is the ability to be able to effectively wind it up to 1400 newton meters of torque. So the body is level, on that, but it can also reverse the other way. So if you're off-road with the vehicle, it allows the wheels to articulate and keep contact, force the wheel down, so it keeps in contact with the surface. So it's a very versatile car.
So I guess to a vehicle designer, it's to have something like that on board for a car. You want to go off-road and you want to be able to go around a circuit, which is quite a big ask to do, because it's got to be a utility kind of SUV, but it's an Aston Martin at the end of the day.
Yes, and with that in mind, obviously we wanted to have the best handling SUV, and we certainly think we've ticked the box in that area, but also has the ability, should you require it, to take it off-road. So all in all, it's a very versatile vehicle, and it's just a thing of beauty.
I'm very jealous. Well, thank you very much for very brief insight, Neville. Brilliant. Hopefully, very soon we'll be getting the car on the channel.
Fantastic.
Cheers.
Okay, take care.
Okay, so let's start this walk around on the inside, because the outside is a stunning looking thing, but the inside of an SUV is always a very, very special place. I've owned a few, I've driven quite a lot, and they're always sumptuous and luxurious, and you've got this elevated driving position, and that's why many people opt for an SUV. Jumping in the DBX, the instant thing that I feel is you're sat very low down. It doesn't feel like an SUV until you look out over the bonnet and you realise you're actually higher above the ground than you think. It's beautifully equipped in here, very Aston Martin, leather absolutely everywhere. I love the use of leather. Even here, this central part here, there's actually a speaker and an air vent in here. They've both been covered by leather. You've got beautiful carbon fibre detailing, and then there's some new materials in here. Include one that actually has the wool mark. It's the first use of the kind of material in a car, actually. These seats are derived from DB11 and they are very comfortable, but they're a lot smaller in terms of dimensions. Certainly the seat is smaller and the back is smaller, so that gives you far more legroom. But where the cabin really comes into its own is DBX was designed, it's got the longest wheelbase in its class, so being designed from the ground up and not sharing a common body with some other manufacturer, it's been able to give the designers a huge amount of scope in here to make it really roomy and airy. Standard panoramic glass roof is huge. It's just a big panel of glass and gives a huge light and airy feel to the car. I like that very much. But the party piece for this car is apparently passenger legroom in the back. Now I am sat here, I've got I'm 6'3", very long legs, 34-inch inside legs. So let's jump in the back and see just how much room I've got, because I have a feeling I'm going to have quite a lot. Oh wow! It's cavernous in here. I've got loads and now that seat's quite a long way back for me. Loads and loads of space. It's very clever. Again, this car has class-leading interior space compared to the outside space. So, you know, it's a really clever trick to pull off, because from the outside it actually doesn't look that big. It's kind of, I don't know, size-wise it looks maybe like a Porsche Macan, something like that, but inside it's huge. Now, really big question is, can you get two dogs in the boot? Let's go and find out. Now, sadly the dogs aren't joining me for this part of the video, but stay tuned because they will be towards the end of this video. Because what I've got in here, by demonstration, this car has 625 litres of boot space, and this beautiful bespoke Aston Martin luggage has been put in here. So let's unpack and I'll just show you exactly what you can get in the boot. It is huge, but who wouldn't want one of those? Look, how beautiful are they? And finally, two big cases. Oh, certainly enough to be going away for a weekend. That is huge, and if I just push these two buttons here, I can drop the seats down and that doubles the interior space. Massive. Easily get my mountain bike in the back of that. No worries. Now then, let's talk about performance, all the stats you need to know. It's powered by a turbocharged V8 derived from Vantage, slightly different throttle mappings and so on. Clearly it's a different car. That produces 550 PS and 700 Newton meters, but it's coupled to a 9-speed automatic transmission, and that gives the car the ability to do two jobs. It needs to be able to do the off-road job, but it also needs to be able to do the cruising GT kind of sports car job as well. I cannot wait to drive that. In terms of four-wheel drive system, the four-wheel drive system again is pretty trick. It has the ability to kind of run in 50-50 mode, or you can put all of the power, all 100% to the rear wheels if you really want to go Yahoo. Now that it is still a pretty heavy car, 2,245 kilos, but it will dispatch 60 miles an hour in just 4.3 seconds onto a top speed of 181 miles an hour. So hugely quick car. But then the other stats you probably wouldn't normally get quoted with an Aston Martin are towing capacity. This can tow up to 2.7 tons or 2,700 kilos and has a wading depth of 500 millimeters should you be brave enough to take it off-road. Now we've already actually heard about the next thing I want to talk about, and that is the incredible suspension setup on this car. It has triple chamber air suspension because it's got to do a couple of jobs. You need to be able to raise the ride height if you're going off-road. You're able to reduce the ride height for easier access, but then if you want to track the car or drive aggressively, you don't want huge amounts of body roll. So it has a really clever electronically controlled anti-roll system, and we've talked about that in the preamble already, and just apparently, talking to the guys that have driven it, it rolls less than a Vantage around the corners, and for me that is incredible. The thing I find amazing when you drive modern day sports-oriented SUVs is the lack of body roll, the way in which they drive like a saloon car, a sports car, and I cannot wait to get my hands on this. But yes, very, very clever suspension system. While we're here, by the way, it's sat on 22-inch wheels, and there are a couple of different wheel specs, but they are huge, and the brakes behind them, they are absolutely gigantic things. Now, I think the front of the car looks superb, but what I really love about Aston Martin is the way that they manage their airflow around their cars, and there's some really nice touches here. So first thing, this air vent here has the daytime running light running around it, which I think just looks fantastic, but it's what happens to the air after that. So we're going to go in here, the air then comes into the wheel arch, but there's a big kind of vent coming out the back of the wheel arch to expel any kind of high pressure buildup. And then that air is channeled down the side of the car to produce what Aston Martin call an air curtain to reduce drag. The really clever trick about airflow management in this car happens at the back. Yeah, so on a £160,000 car, you may notice that there's something missing from the back of this. There's no rear screen wiper, and that's because they don't need one, because the way the airflow is managed. So basically, airflow is going to come over the top of the car, and then this spoiler basically has a couple of jobs. The airflow is going to come down here and effectively self-clean the rear windscreen, but also divert air onto this rear spoiler section to produce the kind of downforce you would assume there. But I just think that's really, really cool. No rear wiper needed. It also looks fantastic, and the rear view of this car, the kind of family lights, I just think the back end looks so much better than I thought it would. I'm so glad they kind of got rid of those big bulbous lights from the test mule that were put there to throw us all. Now then, the final thing we need to talk about DBX are some optional packages that you can add. There are 11 in total, and they include a winter sports package with boot warmers for your ski boots, and a shooting package with everything from places to put your champagne and even a lockable case for your guns. But the one I'm interested in is the pet pack, of course. And obviously, to review that, I need two able assistants. Oh, you're making yourself comfortable there, mate. Yes, the Petrol Pup and the Petrol Pooch have joined me in the back of the DBX to have a look at the pet pack. Now, the pet pack is an option that includes a number of very cool things, some of which I don't have here today. There is a boot liner that drops down and protects this lovely carbon fibre valance. I don't have that. There's perhaps the coolest dog guard I've ever seen in my life. There's this beautiful tailored bed, which the girls are enjoying very much. And then this. So you can imagine you've been out in the countryside, you've had a really muddy walk, and this is a pet wash. So basically you've got a 10-litre tank in here to put some water in. It plugs into a 12-volt electric supply in the boot, and you can then wash your pet off. I guess you could use that for mountain bikes, although there is a bike pack that includes options like a potential rack on the roof or tow bar mounted rack. So that's very cool. Then there's also look at this. Are these the coolest dog bowls you've ever seen in your life? A lovely little Aston Martin leather pack, and a couple of dog bowls, and even a couple of dog leads. Yes, now that pack is £2,700, including that. So it's rather an expensive option, but you've got to spoil the pups, haven't you? Anyway, I have to say a huge thank you to Aston Martin Chichester for inviting me along today to take a really good look around the DBX. A very special car, I think you'll agree. I think it's going to be an important car for Aston Martin. It takes them into a new segment. In many of their markets, really, the SUV segment is so important for a manufacturer, and I think this car certainly is the one to do. I cannot wait to get to drive the car, but it certainly gets the seal of approval from the pups. Look, they're well chilled out in there. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that one. If you have done so, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol Ped for plenty more content to come. And from me and the Petrol Pooch and the Petrol Pup, I'll see you on the next film, guys. You take care. Drive safe.